I'm out working in the field again in New York City. This time, I'm in front of Gracie Mansion, the home of Mayor Eric Adams. And we're going to sit down and talk about all things having to do with running the biggest city in the United States. We're going to talk about the challenges, the homelessness, the people that are fighting with mental illness, the educational crisis, and we're going to talk about Mayor Adams' personal crisis facing indictments that could land him in prison for as much as 40+ years.
Mayor Adams, you currently face federal charges for bribery, fraud, and soliciting illegal foreign campaign donations.
Based on what I read, it's clear that if it's campaign violations, I know I don't violate the campaign.
That's right.
If it's foreign donors, I know I don't take money from foreign donors. Then we look forward for the legal team to handle this as I handle the city of New York and continue the success that we've witnessed in the last 2 years and 9 months as the mayor of the city of New York. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The mayor entered a plea of not guilty. He's innocent. We expect these charges to be dismissed.
Well, Mayor, thanks for sitting down with me. I want to begin by thanking you for last night, taking me down into the subway and showing me the initiatives that you and your response teams are taking with the mentally ill and the homeless that are down living in the subway and getting out of the weather down there. That was very enlightening and I think very educational for people.
So true, and really thank you for doing so. I was really amazed to see how the Dr. Phil brand, even in a tough crowd like New York, is, people respect your trusted voice. And I think your real approach to the real problems that we're facing, and that personifies the real problem. The complexities that are associated with people who are dealing with not only severe mental health, but those who are silently dealing with depression and all the other forms of mental health. It is played out in our subway system.
It really is, and I think that's just one prong of the issue because there are so many that aren't there. Maybe they're one paycheck away from being there. Maybe they're one life experience away from being there that are living all around the city and they're alone and they're suffering from loneliness. And we talked about that some last night because that is a real issue, a real problem that impacts longevity. It impacts people's resiliency if they have a disease. And of course, those people are suffering from loneliness. Can you imagine? I know you can, but people need to think about how long the nights are when you have nothing to do, nowhere to be, to just sit there and nothing to look forward to, no hope. The hours are just dragging by forever.
Right, and you tend to start to exist and no longer to live. And, we ignored for many years how loneliness plays a major role in the social determinants of health.
Yeah.
And other countries, they start to look at loneliness czars and they really started to focus on that. And, we come from a culture where it's like, suck it up, step up a lift. These things don't impact you. But it does, and it impacts us in many ways, and we have to, number one, acknowledge it if we want to resolve it. And I'm hoping that our city starts to do, like others have indicated they're doing, of becoming trauma identifiers. Identify when people are going through trauma, not only who are coming for your services, but even your city employees. Our city employees, that vicarious trauma all day, every day. You're hearing the pains of people, and people don't realize it, but it plays on you in a real way.
It does. New York is a sanctuary city.
Yes.
Will it continue to be in the future?
The idea of sanctuary city and those who are paroled into the country has been conflated. We need to clearly understand what a sanctuary city is. A sanctuary city, this was a law that was passed by former Mayor Koch and was also modified by Mayor Bloomberg. What it states is, if you are here in this city, you have a right to services. You have a right to go to the hospital to get medical care. You have a right to have your children educated in our schools. You have a right, if you're a victim of a crime, that someone is going to respond to you. You have a right to use the basic services of the city. Because if you're here and you buy a loaf of bread and you're paying taxes, those are tax dollars going to coffers. No one's telling you that if you are an immigrant, documented or not, that you don't have to pay your taxes for those items. So because of that, you have a right to the services in the city. That's what a sanctuary city is. In addition to that, New York City has a right to shelter law that tells you if you are in New York City, you have a right to have shelter. No one thought that was going to mean 225,000 migrants and asylum seekers. This was a lawsuit that was passed years ago when a group of men who were homeless did not have shelter, and that lawsuit was passed and put in place. That is different than what we are experiencing right now with the migrants and asylum seekers. Both the sanctuary city law has nothing to do with that. These people are paroled into the country, and when they're paroled into the country, if they come here to New York City, then our right to shelter laws kick into existence.
Right. And you had a system for sheltering people here, meeting that law that would accommodate 40, 50,000 people?
Yes, we had, when I came into office, we had 65,000 people in our care already. With the migrants and asylum seeker crisis, that's an additional 220,000. That overwhelmed the city, the city. And the right to shelter law, we went to court and fought for this. The right to shelter law never was intended for humanitarian crises of housing everyone across the globe. As the law was in place before we challenged the right to shelter, it stated you could come from anywhere on the globe, come to New York, and stay on taxpayers' dime for as long as you want inside our shelter system. That just made no sense.
These are two different things.
Yes.
People that say, okay, New York, you thought it was so great to be a sanctuary city, now you got to house all these people. That's not part of the sanctuary guidelines.
No, it's not.
The reason that you're housing these people is because there is a law that has nothing to do with sanctuary.
Not at all.
It's not really well defined what sanctuary city means, but
Right.
you could throw all that label off and you still have the law that says you come here, you have a right to shelter.
Right to shelter. It was over 40-something years that law was in place, right to shelter. What we did is we went to court and we said to the court that this was not the intention of right to shelter, that we will house anyone from anywhere on the globe that comes here. We must pay on taxpayers' dime their right to shelter. And the court agreed with us, and we were able to make some modification in that when it comes down to the migrants and asylum seeker crisis, this is a humanitarian crisis. That is not what right to shelter was put in place for.
Okay, but you're still housing these people.
No, this is what we did. This is why we were successful, because this is so important. We put a timeline on it. We were saying now to the migrants and asylum seekers that you can't come here and stay as long as you want. We're now giving you 30 days if you're a single adult, 60 days if you are a family with children. And within that time frame, you have to find your path. Now, that 225,000 that we've had, 170,000 went on the next step of their journey. Some decided they want to be reticketed back to the countries that they came from. Some went to the destinations that they wanted to go to in the first place, but 170,000 have moved on. We took a lot of criticism. People said we were inhumane for giving people a deadline. They attacked us for it. No, what's inhumane is having a child raised in a shelter system. You're less likely to graduate from high school if you're in a shelter system. And if you don't educate, you will incarcerate.
Every notification on your phone announces another wave, a hurricane threatening lives, an East Coast labor strike threatening our supply chain, an international conflict threatening our peace, or an assassination attempt threatening our democracy. Supply chains for medications can be unreliable, but there's a way to feel safer in this uncertain world. Please research how to get your own supply of medications in case of a small or more significant emergency. I urge you to invest in a Jace case today. It's an emergency medication kit containing life-saving antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You'll fill out a simple online evaluation and customize your case to include add-ons like ivermectin, EpiPens, and more. The time to prepare is right now. Mention my name and you can receive a discount on your Jace case. Just go to jace.com and enter promo PHIL at checkout. That's promo code PHIL at jace.com. Get the right meds the moment you need them.
Those who abuse of their right to be in this country by violating and harming innocent people, they should not be here after they serve their time. I'm clear on that, and I'm unwavering on that. And I'm looking forward not to be in a warring state with the incoming president and his team, but to be in a working state. Fix the immigration, secure our border, and make sure that we can protect Americans.
You've spent $6.5 billion.
Think about that.
Yeah, it's
Think
a lot of
about
money.
that.
What could you do with that?
Well, one, it's imperative, as we went out yesterday and walked in the subway system, we need to get people into what we call safe haven housing so they could get round-the-clock care. Imagine if we had $1 billion to do that. We will wipe out homelessness in this city if we had $1 billion. We have a large number of children that did not return to school after COVID, and they are chronically absent from school. A substantial number of them, tens of thousands. Imagine if we had $300 million and we could have gone and put a real team together to find them. If we had a couple of $100 million to hire more police officers, $1 billion to put in our housing. You know, when you talk about $6.5 billion that was removed out of the economy, that is not going to hurt high-income New Yorkers. Specifically, it's going to hurt low-income New Yorkers. That should never have happened. Cities should not carry the weight of federal issues. Look at what happened to Denver. Millions of dollars out of their budget. Chicago, billions of dollars out of their budget. Los Angeles, Washington, Houston. These are big cities in America that they had to take a substantial amount of their cities' tax dollars that should have been going to the needy in their cities, and they had to send it over to deal with the national crisis. Not only New York, it hit our major cities in America,
Yes.
and even our border cities. When I was down in El Paso, and so what was happening there as well. This has hijacked these cities and their tax dollars to deal with the crises that they were facing.
Do you believe we should close the border?
Yes, we should, until we get it under control and decide. There are several things that I think we can turn this crisis into an opportunity. Many of our cities are dealing with a serious decrease in population. We're dealing with a real workforce issue, everything from food service workers to nurses. We have a shortage, et cetera. We should control the process. If we parole someone into this country, we should tell them where to go. Here's we have a population problem. Here we have an employment problem. You go here for 3 years, and then you can determine to move throughout the country. You should not dictate where you're going into the country. There should be a symbiotic relationship. You go where we need you to go. And then we should not be allowing and paroling in those who are gang members, those who have a history of violence. We have to do a better vetting job to make sure that whoever is coming into our country is coming here because they believe in the American dream.
I know you're a Democrat mayor, but so many of the things you're talking about are cultural issues that should be nonpartisan. I mean, getting the homeless taken care of, mentally ill taken care of, educational issues taken care of. These children that need safety, Americans that need safety, these aren't partisan issues. This applies to everybody. And you're taking all of these things on. And it seems to me that everybody would line up behind those things. Do you have enemies on these issues?
Oh, you do. I think that there's certain things that we have witnessed that is happening in our country right now that we need to really be conscious of them. One, I believe the radicalizing of our children. Here you had a person who went to an Ivy League school, raised in the best family, but when you read the manifesto and you look at his posture, he appeared to hate America. The shooting that shook our city last week, a CEO, Brian Thompson of UnitedHealthcare'a was the victim of a senseless act of violence. When you looked at after October 7th, what was playing out on our college campuses and some of the paraphernalia of, destroy America, using the sports analogy, our young people, that's our AAA, that's our minor league. If they hate the jersey of the professional team, you in trouble. If you hate America, If you don't understand what America has done, and no, we're not perfect. We have a lot of things we have improved on, but it's the best country on the globe. And so I get criticized, and many people are criticized for one reason. They love America.
Right.
You know, there's something wrong with you for loving America, a country where a young man is dyslexic and now he's elected to be the mayor of the greatest city, I believe, on the globe, only in America. And so, yes, there are those who their agenda is they hate our way of life. And we
Right.
need to be honest about that. And they want to hurt our way of life. And they're the numerical minority, but they're the loudest, they are organized, and they have a lot of partnership and a lot of legacy media. We have to be honest about that.
Poor sleep affects more than just energy. It impacts focus, mood, and overall health. If you've struggled with falling asleep or staying asleep or found other sleep aids ineffective, Beam's Dream Powder could be your solution. Dream Powder is a healthy, science-backed hot cocoa for better sleep made with natural ingredients like reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin to help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up refreshed. Unlike other sleep aids, Dream doesn't cause next-day grogginess. It's delicious, guilt-free, and available in flavors like sea salt caramel, brownie batter, and cinnamon cocoa, with just 15 calories and 0 grams of sugar per serving. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil for up to 40% off. You're mayor of the biggest city in the United States, and you look at crime statistics, for example, and in New York, you've been able to really fight the battle against crime, violent crime, murders, muggings, rape. You're making progress across the board, correct?
Yes, we are. And we have continuously witnessed a decrease in crime throughout my administration. I inherited a city where we were looking at a 40% increase in crime. We were in the midst of COVID. No one wanted to come back on our subway system. No one wanted to use the office spaces, small retail shops. We were in a dark place, and it was aggravated by some of the crises that COVID produced for the city and the country. And the amazing work of the police department. These men and women couldn't social distance. They couldn't operate remotely. They had to be out there every day, and they did just that. And I knew I had to deal with not only rebuilding the city, but rebuilding the morale of our officers by giving them the salary that they deserve, giving them the equipment they deserve, and giving them the support. And they answered the call, and I'm really pleased of what the NYPD was able to accomplish.
Has that been the key in getting crime down? Are there other things that have contributed to it? Because I think people across America want to know. All the polling that went into the presidential election, across the board, people said number one was affordability. They wanted to be able to afford their lives, take care of their children, and second was security. And that included border security, but it included security of all kinds. They wanted to feel safe in their communities and in their homes. And as you know, I have a relationship with the NYPD. I know a lot of these officers and leaders, and they'd lay down in traffic for you because you have their backs. Are there other things that have contributed to lowering the crime rate in New York?
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is from Archbishop Desmond Tutu. We spend a lifetime pulling people out of the river. No one goes upstream and prevent them from falling in the first place. We have been operating in our cities, in our country, with a real downstream mindset. We wait until people fall in the river, and then we create all of these programs and spend billions of dollars of how to respond to the crises instead of how do we prevent the crisis. So I embraced an upstream mindset at the beginning of my administration. And what did that look like? Doing dyslexia screening in our schools. I'm dyslexic, and I was undiagnosed until I got to college. 30 to 40% of our inmates that are in our prisons and jails are dyslexic.
Right.
That means that instead of giving them the services that they deserve so they could be functioning in our society, we wait until they believe they're dumb and they commit predatory crimes and end up in our jails. We wanted to stop that by doing that dyslexia screening. And also around health, what we have done proactively around health, what we have done around foster care children. We have 600 to 700 foster care children that age out every year, and we know what happens to them. They fall through the cracks, victim of a crime, participate in crime, homelessness, mental health. We said, let's stop that. We're giving them now college, we're paying their college tuition, giving them a stipend to live daily, and we're giving them life coaches until they're 21 years old. You're seeing a remarkable increase in the number that are graduating in college and participating in the services we're doing. So our mindset is we can't be a downstream administration. We must go upstream and prevent some of these crises in the first place.
So people know when we talk about aging out of the foster care system, my wife, Robin, and I have been national spokespersons for CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates, for a long time, and Robin's been very active in that regard. But when we say age out, when they hit 18, they're done.
Think about that. Right.
There's nowhere for them to go. And so they're just out on the street and may not have had any preparation for the next level. And so they get lost in the system sometimes. And this can sound like a big giveaway program when you're talking about life coaches for them and different things like that. But the return on investment probably saves them using other services, winding up in incarceration, getting on drugs, being in all kinds of problems that require social services. By empowering them to stand on their own 2 feet, that doesn't happen for free, but it probably saves the city a fortune in the long run.
Dr. Phil, it is an investment. And we have the program is called Fair Futures here, but it is an investment. And what we have failed to do is identify how to invest in the future, not giveaways, but investment. And we basically profitize poverty. When you wait until that child that we didn't invest in, we pull them out of the stream downstream, then there's so much money that's been generated and made off of profitizing poverty. When you have to take that child that you didn't diagnose as dyslexic and they end up incarcerated, now you have all of these billions of dollars that are spent on reentry programs and spent on the traumatizing that they did. That is profitable. And so there's no real incentive, to be honest with you, in changing to an upstream mindset because there's so much money that's being made downstream. And then when you look at the victims of who's being made for it, they're poverty, they're Black and brown, they're other ethnic groups that are living in low income. And so the voice and incentive of the money that's being made downstream is just mind-boggling. And I said, no, we need to stop that. We need to go upstream and make the investment. And it's almost a tenth of what it costs pulling people out of the river.
Yeah, and who's profiting from this, generally speaking?
There's a whole list of professional entities that deal with downstream management and responses. And it's not to say that they're wrong, because someone must deal with pulling people out of the river.
Right.
But what we must do is refocus our attention to an upstream model because it's more cost saving, it's better for taxpayers, and it does not perpetuate the continuation of the problem that we're facing.
Yeah, because if you do it downstream, what you're doing is you're managing it, you're not healing it, you're not changing it.
Well said, well said. And that's the key, what I've learned from being a police officer, watching the impact of downstream. One of the most memorable moments for me as an officer, 11-year-old, was arrested several times for gunpoint robbery. When I went into the command and I spoke to the young man, he knew every four-letter word you could imagine. It wasn't until late into the night that I sat down after buying him something to eat and drink that he broke down and started crying. That his dad was in jail serving a serious charge. His mother was hooked on crack cocaine. He was not in school for a substantial period of time. Nobody checked on him. So that's the system collapsing. Yeah. And if we don't stop that mindset, then it's just a revolving door, and it never ends. We're treating the symptom and not the underlying cause. And we need to stop treating the symptoms because the symptoms will always be there. It's just another pill.
You know, my dad used to say, Christmas is when people who don't know each other all that well get together in a space that is too small to spend too much time together. Dr. Phil here with your Mental Health Moment, Holiday Edition, brought to you by my good friends at Michael's. Your one-stop holiday shop to make the season bright. With everything you need to create a joyful holiday ambiance for every style, space, and budget. Now, some people love having their entire extended family sleep under the same roof for the holidays. But if you don't like sleeping on a sofa and sharing a bathroom with your 12th second cousins, getting a hotel or motel room nearby just might be worth its weight in gold. Now, maybe the kids want to stay at grandma's and sleep on the floor and play Uno until 3 a.m., but you can get away and take a shower and a nap. You might even turn it into a mini honeymoon. Break the mold and do what works best for your family. Not what I should do, must do. What will make it much nicer for the holidays for everyone is what you want to focus on. This is not a time that should be stressful. This is a time for common sense and saying, hey, what really works? And maybe what really works is not what's always been done. It's what works for your family and your situation. And sometimes that means taking a step back and not being quite so intensively together. Thanks again to Michael's for ensuring that holiday enthusiasts and last-minute shoppers can find what they need when they need it. In stores and online at michaels.com. Here's the question that I've been so anxious to ask you about. I believe that the education system in America across the board is subject to immediate collapse. And we've got a couple of 100,000 vacancies among teachers. We've got another 100,000 plus that are teaching without certification and training. So we got 300 plus either empty or uncertified teachers. We're seeing standards dropped. When you and I went to school, 90 to 100 was an A, 80 to 90 was a B, 70 to 80 was a C. Now they're just lowering the standards where you start with a 50 and you can pass with a 55. I mean, just show up, put your name on the paper, you pass. And 19% of graduates are functionally illiterate. And now we're getting ready to see what I believe is a huge national crisis with the collapse of our education system. You've got almost 7 million residents in New York City, biggest public school systems in the country. What are you doing to deal with the educational crisis?
So it's so true. Two areas that keep me up at night when it comes down to the future. One's law enforcement. We're seeing a complete collapse and erosion of law enforcement. And the second is education. And those are two entities that we spend a great deal of taxpayer dollars. And are we getting a return on our investment? When you look at the reading and the math scores across the country, how dismal they are, how many communities are reaching proficiency in reading and math, and what are we doing with our children in our schools? And so now we're looking at how, when our children finish their educational experience, how prepared are they? I went to speak with a group of my educators the other day, and I took the original Alexander Graham Bell clock that was made, and I showed what the classroom was for that period of time, and children were sitting behind the desk learning. Then I said, well, here's the telephone of today, the smartphone, and here's the classroom of today. It's the same darn classroom.
Yeah, hasn't changed.
We've evolved
Yeah.
in the technology, but the classroom is still the same. So we're zeroing in on not only must our children be academically smart, they have to be emotionally intelligent. How do you manage your emotions? How do you have those basic skills of communicating, critical thinking, working in groups? How do you learn to just express yourself and think differently? And then we need to getting out of the fishbowl of education. The purpose of going to school is either to start your own career or to be involved and be employable. So why shouldn't the people who are going to describe what skill set our children need to be employable, they should be part of the curriculum. They should be the partner and say, this is the young man or woman and what I need them to have when they come to seek a job or when they start their own company. And I think that we were too tied just basically to the historical roles of education and needs when the globe around us changed. And so we have real partnership with internship, real partnership with real work experience for our young people. We are allowing them to do some of the items that they need to be prepared for the future. Like we're teaching breathing exercises, meditation in our schools, healthy food so we don't feed the healthcare crisis. Yes, we're dealing with the 3 R's, reading, math, and those essentials, but you need to develop the full personhood of our children so they can be prepared. You and I know, I did 22 years in the police department. Our babies are not going to be around sometimes for 22 weeks. They're going to have so many changes, and they must be prepared for those changes in a real way.
Well, are we teaching the wrong things, failing to teach the right things? Is that what you're saying? And we've got to do something. How we're graduating 19% of the class that can't read, I don't understand. And it seems to me that we do need to be teaching maybe computer coding, maybe AI skills, maybe things that match what the challenges are today that didn't even exist back then. And maybe this would motivate kids to want to go to school if they knew, hey, I can sell these skills next year if I was learning something now instead of following a curriculum that's 50, 100 years old.
And that's the goal, and that's what we did. We changed our entire reading curriculum against what was normally being done, and the entire state is following us, and we believe the country is going to follow us. We were basically not using the right methodology. Chancellor Banks, the former chancellor, was extremely aggressive, innovative, in saying we need to do it right. We can't do what we've always done, and we're doing the same things with math as well. Just thinking differently, because you're right. The reading is not only your desire to get a high grade on your test scores, it is how you're going to function in life. It is how you're going to have the quality of life that you deserve and what we should be preparing our children for.
Well, no question about that. And most of those in the prison system are poorly educated. They're not literate. They don't have job skills. And the population that is functionally illiterate, poorly educated, dropouts, are much higher at risk for winding up in prison than those who have. And those who get educated while they're in prison, their chance of winding up back in prison is 16%. Those who don't get educated while they're there, their chance of coming back is about 85%.
What you're saying is so important. And not only that, it feeds into what I stated earlier. I have been to Rikers Island, our jail, more than any mayor in the history of the city. And when I go there and I ask the inmates in groups and gathering, raise your hand if you have a learning disability. 8 out of 10 raise their hands. The real crime is not only what they committed, but it's the fact that we did not diagnose them and give them the support they needed at an earlier age. We are producing the criminal behavior because people don't believe they have a place in our society, and they do if we do a better job. And we're doing dyslexia screening in our jails so that we can show them while they're there, they can get the education that they need, as the numbers that you just pointed out.
So again, return on investment.
Exactly. And that's the key. The key is, are we investing in the right things? And we have to be honest and willing to do in this administration.
Would you accept a pardon if Trump offered it to you?
I don't deal with hypotheticals. I have an illegal team, and they're going to manage anything that's possible to deal with these charges that should have never been brought on me in the first place.
You've been indicted as a sitting mayor by a grand jury.
This is not surprising to us at all. The actions that have unfolded over the last 10 months, the leaks, the commentary, the demonizing, this did not surprise us that we reached this day. My attorneys would take care of the case so I can take care of the city. I will continue to do the job for 8.3 million New Yorkers that I was elected to do.
Why do you think that happened?
I think it's a combination of things, and I believe at the tip of it is I was extremely vociferous about what was happening to this city during the migrants and asylum seeker issue. I lived my life not only when I was a law enforcement officer, but as a state senator, a president, and a mayor, of following the law. And when you look into the crevices of the indictment, it clearly shows there's something that's just not right. And, you know, Dr. Phil, I cannot tell you the only consolation to this is that mommy's not alive. I would not want my mother to watch me go through this. And it hurts a lot. No American should go through being on the FBI watch list because you're standing up for your family member. That is just not what our criminal justice system is about. And that's not the criminal justice system I fought for. I've been an advocate for proper criminal justice. And so I believe that the record is going to show I did nothing wrong. What I did right, I stood up for this city. And I believe there were those that just disagreed that why was I standing up to see what was happening to my city and happening to the families in the city.
This is in New York. President-elect Trump has been charged with a lot of things here. This is happening to you here. Is this something that has infected this district? Why do you think here this is going on?
You know, I started looking at my case and reading through it, and then I started to just go and search what has happened to other people. Not only to President-elect Trump, but there are other great patriots that have gone through a difficult period of time. And when you look at the amount of money you have to spend in defending yourself, you saw the leaks that were being slipped out and reported constantly. And as much as we ask the federal government, can you stop leaking this and allow us to have our opportunities to defend ourselves? And it's almost as though you have your hands tied behind your back because you can't talk as much as you want to push back on some of the accusations. But I think this is a national issue that we have to face. The American public is not aware of how I believe we have really abused our criminal justice system.
What would you say to your mother about this if she was alive?
I'll tell her I'm sorry. My mother was extremely proud of me. You know, she used to stay up late at night, Dr. Phil, and, you know, I was struggling in school, and she would tell me, you know, baby, don't worry, just, you know, keep trying. And she was proud when I became a police officer. She was proud when I became a state senator and borough president. And she has 6 children. She loved them all, but she adored me. I was her child. And you
telling
know,
me you were the favorite?
I was the favorite. And you know what? They all know it. But it would have broke my heart if she would have had to live through this. It would have broken me.
Is it hurting you?
Yes, it is. It is. You know, I have a son, and every day I tell him, follow the rules, follow the law, do what's right. And you build up your character. You know, I was in Ireland many years ago, and I was speaking to some of the people, and they said that never hurt the family name. And, you know, I never wanted to hurt the family name. And I'm the mayor of the biggest city on the globe. And all that I built up and all the contributions that I made to watch me go through this. And you know, what hurt me the most is that there are many people that know me that never even read the indictment. And they was just saying he needs to step down. They know the life that I live. Some people I helped through most difficult times. But I refused to step down. I stepped up. And I delivered for this city, passing housing legislation, helping the homeless, educating our children, keeping our streets safe. This is a great American story. When it's all said and done, people are going to realize how Americans are the most resilient people. Because as hard as this has been, there was not one day I said I wanted to surrender. I used to walk past my mother's room when she was raising the 6 of us on our home, and I would hear her crying at night, unsure if the marshals were going to throw us out. and unsure if she was going to be able to feed us. But you know what? When that alarm clock went up in the morning, she got up. She got up. Those arthritic knees, she did those 3 jobs. She came home every day and she said, I have a job to do and I'm not giving up on my children. And I'm not going to give up on the people of this city, no matter what comes at me. I'm going to deliver for these people.
You're going to fight these charges to the bitter end.
Yes, I am. I'm going to fight it. And it's important that I do so because I know I haven't done anything wrong. I've served this city as a police officer. I served the city as a state senator, as a borough president, and I'm serving it as the mayor. And I think that my story is an American story. And I'm going to fight to the bitter end for this city.
You don't seem to be letting it distract you.
No, your success is not what you have done, but what you have overcome. I overcome COVID in this city and brought us back. I overcome 220,000 migrants and asylum seekers without any support from the federal government that we should have received. Overcome an indictment, but still doing the job, because every day people are overcoming. How do I surrender when a mother lost a child to gun violence? Yes, she gets up and started an organization like Jackie Roe Adams to stop gun violence. How do I surrender when someone lost a loved one to cancer? Then they start a march to help others. Everyday people are overcoming obstacles. And so I need to assemble and let them know that no matter what I'm going through, I'm going to overcome it and I'm going to continue to move the city in the right direction. We've turned the city around in 2 years and 11 months. People thought it was going to take us 5 years to turn around the economy, to make it a cleaner, safer city, and to build the housing and how we deal with the crises that we're facing. And I need to stay on the path. I have a saying, no distractions, stay focused, and grind. That's the American way.
You have nothing to apologize for. You're not going to take a step back.
Not at all.
You're going to fight it every step of the way.
Every step of the way. There's no reason to apologize for living the life that I lived, and I'm going to continue do what's best for the people of this city. It is so important. The type of leadership that was needed was important for me to come in office. With my experience as a law enforcement officer and seeing the downstream approach to life that we were watching in our cities and cities, to move the city to an upstream model, to utilize and embrace technology to make us safer and move forward to become the AI capital of the world, to look at all of these challenges. I have work to do, and I'm going to do the job that I was elected to do. My attorney will handle the case. The case I must make sure I handle is the case that New Yorkers should be able to afford to live in a safe city with a bright future for their children.
Well, I want to say, when I asked you to do this interview and you agreed to do it, you came at it with nothing off limits, full transparency. You agreed to answer any questions, talk about anything. There weren't any guardrails or guidelines. And I appreciate your transparency and openness. And I appreciate your trust that I'm going to tell this story and get it out there. That's what we do at Mayor TV. And I appreciate your trust in us and telling this story.
So I think that, your platform is crucial. I think that getting messages out unfiltered, without agendas, but just telling what's right. And when I watch your programming shows, you have really received the trust, as we saw in the train station the other day, the trust of Americans. And I think that's so important. Trust is crucial for us to move our city forward and move our country forward.
Well, we're a platform to tell that story, and I appreciate it, and we're here to tell that story, and we'll continue to do so going forward. Mayor, thank you for your time. I know you're very, very busy.
Thank you.
All right. There you have it. You can make up your own mind about Mayor Adams. I don't think anybody can question his dedication to the city of New York. I don't think anybody can question his transparency about what's going on here. A man born with dyslexia, one of 6 children, that fought to overcome a lot of things, and he's got some personal battles ahead of him right now. But one thing you can bet, he is a fighter. He's not going to lay down, and this will play out, and we'll see where it goes. But he's continuing to keep his eye on the ball. He's continuing to focus on the people of New York and deal with the issues that any city deals with, but they're all amplified when you've got 8 million people looking to you for leadership. We'll see you next time.